So, in the end of Half-Life Alyx, Alyx saves her dad, Eli, by going forward into time and preventing his death. So everyone's like freaking out about like Alyx got brainwashed by the G-Man and went back and went through the series of like Half-Life 2 and met Gordon and disappeared when the G-Man took her in the future. And everybody's got it completely wrong because during Half-Life 2, so you've got let me explain this, all right? You've got three things here, right? You've got the G-Man's timeline, you've got the vault, and you've got the normal timeline right there. Now, listen. I know everything, and everybody else is wrong. So I'm going to pretty much copy this line from line. Because you've got Gordon stuck in stasis from Half-Life 1. You've got Eli, and you've got Alyx. So Alyx goes through the events of Half-Life 2, and at the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 2 is there. Now this isn't Half-Life Alyx, this is what happens inside of the vault. Half-Life 2 is right here. Gordon comes out of stasis into this world and meets Alyx and goes through. But in Half-Life Alyx, 5 years before it, halfway through that game, it's still Alyx. She goes into the vault. Alyx goes into the vault, explores it, and she gets into this room, this very, very important room where everything is split in half. And when she goes in there, she becomes two Alyxes. There's this new Alyx that goes in, and then there's the old Alyx who goes in. And when you go into that mirrored rooms where you can look up and you see the same rooms, and then that door opens and everything flies out of it, and you go through the teleporter, continues there, meets G-Man at the end of Half-Life Alyx, goes into the G-Man's time, and intercepts this Alyx. And then at the end of Half-Life Alyx, she's brought back up into stasis with G-Man. This is all going to make sense in a bit. This is Alyx HL2, and this is Alyx HLA. And she discovers that her father is going to die in the future, and G-Man allows her to kill the advisor who killed Eli. He takes this Alyx and puts her back into stasis as a hired work hand, because Gordon is no longer working for the G-Man in some way. Also, at the very end of Half-Life Alyx, when you're playing as Gordon Freeman, there is no more Alyx. Alyx is gone. It's just Gordon and Eli. And Eli says she's gone. That G-Man took her. That bastard, I'm going to kill him. But what they don't know is that it's a 19-year-old Half-Life Alyx that came in, absorbed the Half-Life 2 Alyx away. Or the G-Man just took that Half-Life 2 Alyx and like put her into storage. That's like a question mark thing. Where is she? Dead? Stored? And the implication here is that this separate Alyx, this original Half-Life 2 Alyx that goes into the vault, she never meets the G-Man. She goes through that teleport, and in the game you can hear Russell talking. She goes back out of the vault after entering it, meets back up with Russell and Eli, goes through the events of Half-Life 2, meets Gordon, ages 5 years, becomes 24 years old, and ceases to exist. The Half-Life Alyx that gets hired by G-Man is 19. She never meets Gordon. Well, maybe in before Half-Life 1, she's a little child, and Eli knows Gordon, but that doesn't matter. This red Alyx meets Gordon, but this orange one never meets Gordon. And if the G-Man's main idea is to have a new hire that is very useful and powerful, like the Half-Life Alyx, she has no idea that Gordon exists at all and could literally be an antagonist in the future of the series if we're playing as Gordon. Because now she's just a tool for the G-Man. That's like the really big point of it all. This isn't Alyx going back, like in this picture, going back and being mind altered and implying that she aged another 24 years old and knows everything and is then hired by the G-Man. During Half-Life Alyx, she is hired at 19 years old. So, if we're controlling Gordon, yeah, Alyx could be a bad guy who, A, doesn't love Gordon Freeman because in Half-Life 2, you're getting to know this Alyx and your pair who work together. And in Half-Life Alyx's eyes, the G-Man allowed her to save her father and will do anything to make sure that her father stays alive. This Gordon person doesn't matter to her. If this Gordon person is going to do something that puts her father in danger, or her father is in danger and the Gordon is trying to stop something, she could try to stop it, because to her, the G-Man will be the source of her power to save her dad. And on top of all that, Merle Dandridge voices this Half-Life Alyx and disappears. This other voice actor who voices Half-Life Alyx, the Alyx in Half-Life Alyx, is a different person because it's a whole different Alyx who's 19. And that's why Valve changed voice actors. During Half-Life Alyx's development, they had Merle Dandridge as an idea of voice acting, but then they changed their idea to continue the story of the Half-Life 2 franchise by having Alyx be hired by the G-Man. And they need it to be a different character that the players will recognize as a different Alyx. And that's why they could still use this dead or stored Alyx as Merle Dandridge, the 24-year-old Alyx, as a different character. And that's the entirety of Half-Life Alyx right here. That's it. Don't shut me down. The news is out, and you can't stop it. I know everything. Then you start going into really crazy shit. This Half-Life 1 Alyx is stored next to Adrian fucking Shepard. Adrian fucking Shepard is going to be in the next series of Half-Life games as Gordon's ally. So the Half-Life 2 Alyx could be in storage, detained, and could meet Adrian Shepard, get to know him, and will know that Adrian Shepard never really meant to fight Gordon Freeman. So that's my theory as to why they replaced the voice actor for Alyx in Half-Life Alyx, and nothing else.